Dr. Marshall was formally trained in mathematics and chemistry. He began his career in operations research for a chemical company tasked to optimize production. However, he took ill with a parasitic infection, which altered the direction of his career. He was driven to use his training in nutrition in order to try to heal from the parasitic infection. As you well know, here in America, in the US, parasites don't exist. They stopped at the Mexican border, at the Canadian border, and they stopped somewhere 30,000 feet above us, you know? Okay, when you came back from Africa, they just died up there. And so he obviously couldn't get help with the medical profession, so he figured it out himself. It took years, but he not only found a cure, he also gained extraordinary knowledge about how the body works and how to heal it. Along the way, he developed Nutrition, Health, and Activity Profile, which is a computerized service for practitioners. In turn, they began sending all of their most difficult clients to Dr. Marshall so he could learn more. And it continues to this day, and now Dr. Marshall has a 6-month waiting list. Along with the career as a PhD certified nutritional consultant and I don't know what that DACBN is.
That's a diplomat of the American Board of Chiropractic Nutrition. And the other one is, I'm a past president of the International American Association of Clinical Nutritionists.
There you go. Did you catch that? Okay. But along with his career, he was poisoned by that genetically modified tryptophan. Remember when tryptophan was taken off the market? It wasn't because tryptophan was bad. It was because they had made the tryptophan using a genetic modification, which then made the tryptophan highly, highly toxic. And that's why it killed some people. He was the only survivor of 128 people who experienced Eosinophilia Myalga Syndrome, which was caused by that toxic tryptophan. It took 20 years before the FDA allowed tryptophan back on the market because they didn't do their research right. Again, it wasn't the tryptophan. The syndrome, he was the only survivor of 128 people who experienced the syndrome as a result of the genetically modified tryptophan poisoning, which affects the lungs in particular. And you can imagine when your lungs get compromised, your oxygen level gets compromised, which means everything gets compromised. Of the syndrome, Eosinophilia Myalga.
Eosinophilia Myalga Syndrome,
Myalgia,
EMS.
it's misspelled here. Doesn't matter. Okay, so please give a warm hand to Dr. Marshall.
Thank you. We got this working. Is this on? This is on, so I don't need this. Wonderful. Good. That lets me move around. I like that. Are we lucky? We have this thing working?
Yeah.
It's a definite maybe?
It's a maybe.
Okay. Well, wonderful. All right. Is there you don't have a clicker to advance it. No, there's no worries. I think I get it here. Okay. Well, thank you all for having me, and welcome to my world for just a little while. And, you know, I'm obviously English with my horse face, and the English love a difficult puzzle. You know, of course, of Scotland Yard, and they'll work on a murder case for 20, 25, 30 years and still get the guy. And in that regard, I think there's some gene that does that. And you know how the cat, when he catches the mouse, brings it to show you that he's got it before he eats it? I think we all have a little bit of this, but I just have to do what I do. And I love figuring out how it works. And that's my world. But I didn't come here, I actually came here because I want to make sure that each of you have choices that are really not available normally. They're not available. And so tonight, if you're interested, I'm going to give you some choices that could dramatically change your life. And I'm going to show you where the problems are in the everyday when you eat every single day and how to change that. And so I hope you'll enjoy it. Before I start, I want to tell you that I had a life-changing experience besides being poisoned with Eosinophilia Myalga Syndrome and going at least 14 years in misery with night sweats and not being able to walk for 10 minutes, and really a fun experience. I almost died 3 times. The first 2 times I was just really angry, really pissed. And then the 3rd time I got it. I'm a little slow. The 3rd time I got it, your life's a gift. It's a gift. You got nothing coming. So now I feel like I'm a guy who's got a credit card. I can run as high as I want. And I don't have to pay for it. So I'm way ahead of the game. And actually each of you are too, because nobody owed you a life. And we need to start just being simply saying thank you for whatever you got. And one other thing you got to say when something looks bad, like you could die or you could lose a loved one or you could lose your house or something really important. You got to tell yourself, that little guy inside, you got to tell him, whatever it is, it is. In other words, you're saying you're not in control. But the lie of our country is you're in control, you're in charge, and boy, it's your fault. Just try any of our religious teaching. It's definitely your fault, and you're the bad guy. You aren't the bad guy, and you aren't in control. And so once you get this, you can have kind of a joy in your life. Somebody hits your car, somebody steals something. Instead of being all upset, you say thank you, and then you deal with it. If you do this, you're going to have a level of happiness you've never had. And people are going to love being with you. They're going to just love it. Instead of somebody bitching and moaning, some bastard stole my car or whatever. What good does that do? Does that get the car back? Doesn't do any good at all. So make a change, and I think you'll have a joy. And I had this life-changing experience about 2 years ago. I was doing my YouTube thing, and the YouTube is like a super new addictive toy. It's actually scary because I don't smoke cigarettes. I didn't think I had any addictions till YouTube came along, and now I'm addicted. And the way I can tell is I'm sitting there and I have to go to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, why would I have to go to the bathroom? I've only been here 20 minutes. It's 5 hours I've been watching YouTube. So now I've set a timer to try to limit my addiction. But in this transit, I found videos of a purported 163-year-old man. So we take a look at this. And here's this guy that really doesn't know the difference between his elbow and his ass. And he is living to 163. And do you think any of us, with our advanced knowledge of biochemistry or nutrition or anything we know, are going to come close to that? Not even close. Not even close. So, okay, I got to put my my pride and my wounded ego aside for a moment and study the heck out of what is this guy doing. Well, we get to look at his house. It's a shack. There's no stove. There's no refrigerator. And on the counter is kefir. Okay, well, how the heck did he do it? It's cold in the Caucasus Mountains. How do you do it? I must have watched that video 20 times or more. And slowly I figured it out. Blew the picture up a whole bunch, got a special screen, and I could see specks in the kefir. So then I read about the Caucasus people, and they have 2 herbs they love. One of them is agrimony. So I set out to make kefir with agrimony. No other starting culture, and we're using raw milk. What we do today, we don't even think about it. But what we do today is take milk that might even be raw and pasteurize it or heat it way up to boiling. So we induce heat shock protein, cross-linked proteins, damaged sugars, and damaged fats. And then we put a little culture in it, and so now you've got a little great culture along with all the damaged garbage you're just about to eat. And this jerk, who doesn't know any biochemistry, doesn't know you got to boil the milk, has got this fantastic product that lets him live to 163. Wow. And so what else did this guy have? he had another awesome thing. He had something called snow rose. And snow rose is Rhododendron caucasicum. So I thought, okay, I get it, it's fantastic. I get some plants of Rhododendron caucasicum, and I'm really excited. And then I think, okay, we're going to get thousands of kilos of this. We're going to really make this as a product available for everybody. So then my lab chemist and myself started studying Rhododendron caucasicum. And we learned that there's 31 varieties of rhododendron. 30 of them are deadly poisons. And one is the snow rose. So you think you're ever going to have this one, the odds of some jerk collecting the wrong one is about 100%. So we're not going to be bringing Rhododendron caucasicum anytime soon. But agrimony, on the other hand, is available, and it can be used to make a raw kefir. And when you make it, it makes a whole different set of lactobacillus and bifido-organisms than we've been told are the ones to use. And I've isolated these, and I've begun cultures with these. And coincident with this, I learned from an English firm that acidophilus and bifido, which we're all told is what we need, are actually transient organisms. They really don't belong in the gut, and they're there for an accommodation to cook damaged food. So Dumbo has been cooking his food and giving his body this second-class thing that makes him look old, shriveled up, loses hair, overweight, all these things. And it tastes good. That's the trick, though. It tastes good. And Mom gave it to you. So it's got to be good. No, it's not good. And we're going to see a revolution because we've got a new science, epigenetics. And it says, oh, my God, when you cook this food, all these terrible things happen. Just look in the mirror. So a person who's lived 50, 60, 70 years, he doesn't look beat and wiped out because he's lived 50, 60, 70 years. He looks beat and wiped out because every time the body wanted to do a repair job, you gave it something crappy. Wow. This guy really brought this message home to me about 2 years ago. So what do? Stay tuned. I'm going to show you what we do. Now we're going to have some fun. Yep. Can we get it back to life? And then just get to the first slide. Okay. So the concept is, hit the first, advance it one, please. Oh, this is good. That should advance, right? Mercy. I think I'm going to have to do this from memory. Okay, here we go. Good, you got it. Wonderful. Okay, I know Susan has been delightful to pick me up and do several things, and she's told me you guys are pretty sharp tacks on the board when it comes to nutrition. So I won't spend a lot of time on the constituents of food, but I do think it's important to realize that the primary constituents of food are being damaged by your cooking. Protein, as I mentioned, will be cross-linked or heat-shocked. The sugars can be cross-linked, forming ages, which makes you ladies really ugly with these black spots you hate. You want to bleach them off. But why not eat something that would give you any? And the fats, of course, we have really been abusive as a culture when it comes to fat. We've tried to ram down your throat trans fats. Whole Foods believes that we should all eat canola oil. And I've written them many times, I've blogged them, I've done everything, and they just delete my stuff. But that canola oil that's over there is rapeseed oil. Now, if you were a wooden desk, that would be really good oil for you. But if you're a human, the rapeseed oil stinks. So to deodorize it, they treat it, and it forms small amounts of trans fat. But some lawyers got it, so they don't have to say it's got trans fat in it. Isn't that great? The lawyers are just wonderful. So they want to sell you this crap oil, and it's in so much stuff, and it's so cheap, and you really need to stay away from it. And you desperately need to stay away from anything that's a trans fat. And you're going to find that they got a new thing to get you. They got high pressure sterilization, which damages the DNA in your orange juice, but now they don't have to say it's been pasteurized. Boy, is that good, huh? And that's not the end. They've got some new unesterification technology. And of course, they get it out in the marketplace without the FDA saying, hey, what the hell is this? Why don't you guys do a safety study and prove to me that this is okay? No, it's coming right out, and you're going to have to read labels and avoid it. And of course, my unfavorite of all, we're having GMOs rammed down our throat. Fortunately, though, there is a rescue for GMOs. There's a form of clay, calcium aluminum silicate, not sodium aluminum silicate. It won't work. And there's a guy who spent 20 years of his life, Dr. Tim Phillips, and you can look that up on pubmed.org. And this guy has shown, of course, all the work was originally done on animals because, you know, humans aren't that valuable. And as an afterthought, kind of like Onset, as an afterthought, we're going to make something for you guys. This clay was used to clear mycotoxins in animals. And it was also used because when they fed crappy corn to the cow, he produced crappy milk. What an amazing coincidence that was high in mycotoxin. Well, the FDA requires you monitor mycotoxin, so now the poor guy can't sell the milk. Oh, this is now serious. So now they got to fix it. So we give him this clay until, not prophylactically, until the level comes down low enough so they can sell it. They're still feeding them the garbage. So then they get the idea, after 15, 20 years of taking care of the animal, maybe we ought to do something for a human. And the first study that examines cancer and mycotoxins was done November 2013. It would be funny, except millions of people are suffering in misery unnecessarily. Now, if you've been a big peanut butter fan, you probably got a lot of aflatoxin, one of the many mycotoxins. The two super bad guys are corn and peanuts. And boy, corn chips, man, do they taste good. And corn tortillas, and of course the corn boys are very clever. See, they add some lime. So now if you test for mycotoxin, it tests okay. But you eat it, the lime is separated, and the mycotoxin goes nuts. So it's a trick. The only thing you should be eating is high quality corn, which would have very low mycotoxin. And we'll get to that in a little bit, and how could you tell you have a high, I'll do it now and I'll just skip over the slide. How can you tell that you've got a really good quality corn where you don't have to worry about mycotoxin? You get a $100 device called a Brix device. You prick the corn, put it on the screen, and see what the Brix reading is. If it's a good reading, eat the corn. If it's a low reading, don't buy the corn. They love it when you're in the market poking holes in things, by the way. But you know, they make crap, so we have to have a way to screen the crap, and this is a cheap way to find out if it's crap or something you can eat. And it's a great way to find out if a $5 a pound organic tomato is worth $5 a pound, or you might as well buy the $2 crappy one, because they have the same Brix reading. So what the heck is the point in spending $5 for one? Yeah?
Brix, don't quote me on this. I thought the Brix scale was 0 to 10. So you're saying...
No, of course not. It's, I use it all the time. I don't want to spend time on that, but if you want to know all about it, you want to go to an outfit called Acres USA, and they have the chart of what ideal Brix levels would be, and they have lots of information on it. And you can, of course, you can buy a $1,000 one from the Germans, which is a tenth of a Brix, or you can buy an El Cheapo Chinese one that's accurate to about 1 Brix, and as far as I'm concerned, that's great. Buy the cheap one. If you lose it, you buy another one. It's not bad. So we've got to have a way to monitor the load. Now, if you're eating peanut butter for 20 years and you stop 20 years ago, and you stop now and you ate it 20 years ago, your level of mycotoxins is going to be literally unchanged or greater today than when you stopped. This is why these calcium aluminum silicate clays are so important, because they'll slowly, over a year or two, clear the mycotoxic burden in the body. By the way, they also trap dicarbonyl groups. And I promise to keep this very low biochemistry, okay, guys? But that is my bag, so it's my bias. So the calcium aluminum silicate traps all dicarbonyl groups, so it should nail glyphosate. So you take a little of this clay, about 500 milligrams according to Tim Phillips, you put it in 6-8 ounces of water, you mix it up and drink it while you're eating. And now it transits the gut with the crappy food you just ate, and as the glyphosate is liberated, as other persistent organic pollutants, POPs, are liberated, it traps up to 98% of all of them. So finally, you got an antidote to the trash food that's being rammed down your throat because you can't buy anything else. So this is one of the great solutions. But is it going to help you if you cook the pee out of your food? No, it's not. And what you're going to find is that in 1919, and again in 1993, the Swiss studied what happens when you cook food. And boy, this went over like a lead balloon. But what they showed is you cook anything over the boiling point, 212 Fahrenheit, and it elicits a massive leukocytosic response in the blood. So what they did was create a leukocytosic index. And they rated the foods, and of course the worst one of all was sausage. So of course the Germans and the Swiss would like to kill the guy who did the study. However, the study was repeated in '93, and it was even worse than the one done in 1990 because there's better equipment and better testing. So the moral of the story is you sure don't want to eat anything cooked over the boiling point unless you like to be old, weak, and feeble. And if you do, then you shouldn't be here tonight because I'm going to really irritate you. Okay. So one of our choices here with regard to carbohydrates is high fructose corn syrup. This is one that's loaded with mycotoxin, worse than table sugar. Okay? This is a super bad guy, and it's in literally all frozen TV dinners. So what do they do in the nursing homes? Frozen TV dinners. It's like an execution meal, you know? So that's the worst. The next worst is actually refined sugar, especially in America, because in America, our refined sugar has to be super white, you know, because we're the best. Just ask any of us, we're the best. Now, if you go outside this country and ask anybody, you're going to get a completely different answer. But we're the best. So how do we get that sugar so white? So glad you asked me. You know how we do it? 2,4,5-T. Well, gee, what's that? That's a close relative to the one we're not allowed to use anymore. The D word, dioxin. Ooh. And so they tweak it, and they make sugar with it. So that's why American white sugar is like a curse. So if you're dumb enough to use sugar in something, at least get organic dehydrated cane juice. And that would be dumb, but you can do that. Okay, so you can see these primary nutrients have a lot of issues. Let's advance the slides, and I'm gonna come back to minerals, water, and other nutrients. And obviously one of my favorite persistent organic pollutants. Keep going. And of course, you may realize that over the last 25 years, we have an exponential increase in persistent organic pollutants in the food. We have a 50% decline, as measured by 4 different studies, in antioxidant literature of American food, 1980 to 2005. 50% reduction. So you got less protection and way more poison. Okay? All right. Yeah, keep going. I'm going to have to get past some of this. I just want to give you a little history of the deceptions that have gone on. Back in the early 20s, the best science said, hey, we need a high-fat, low-carbohydrate, and moderate protein diet. That's what we're back to now. Next slide. But then we started moving along, and we started doing marketing. And pretty soon, we thought, at that point, simple carbohydrate like sugar was 4 pounds a year. Today, it's 2,500% increased. Because we've told you, you ought to be eating lots of carbs. Ain't so. Ain't so. Definitely wrong. Okay, let's go to the no one. So now in the 1970s, actually in 1961, on the bottom of this slide, Ansel Keys comes along, and he wants to be famous, and he's good looking, and he's a great speaker, and he makes up stuff. He makes up stuff. This is really scary. So he makes up the fact that he studied Europeans, and the really healthy ones have a low-fat diet. He makes this up. And he tells people. And then along comes Nathan Pritikin. And he tells you, man, you don't need any fat. Let's go to the no fat at all diet. And back then I was working with a guy, I loved him. He worked in Pasadena, California. He was a medical doctor. And he went on this Pritikin diet without telling me. And he was on it for months. And he started to develop a tremor. So he comes to me one day and he says, what do you think this is? He's only 50-something. And I said, my God, it looks like either an injury or a fatty acid problem. Fatty acid problem, he says. Well, I've been on the Pritikin diet. I said, what? How long have you been on this? Well, we get him off it, and we didn't have fancy stuff like we've got today, and we didn't have mud packs. And he had to quit work because the tremor was so bad. So Nathan Pritikin, in fact, I was on a TV show with this guy, and he emotionally believed in the no-fat diet, despite the fact that studies show fats are essential for life. So we get this almost religion coming in, and it kind of sweeps the nation. It's amazing. It's in the face of science. And as you can see here, go to the next slide. We had, by 1976, we had all the major research facilities in the US agreeing with these jerks that this was the diet you should have. Very scary to me. And in that time, I had to be very careful. And the diet I'm going to show you, I used to affectionately tell patients, was my closet diet. And why was it the closet diet? Because I'm president of an organization that we teach and test that you should have 50 to 65% complex carbohydrate, 30% or less fat, and 12 to 15% protein, and I can't get a single person back to their ideal weight on that diet. Not a single person. So I have my closet diet, which is high fat, super low carbohydrate, moderate protein. And now I got a new name for it. I've tweaked it up a little bit, and I call it the biofield diet. Really fancy name. But it's basically my closet diet that worked for 10,000 out of about 12,000 patients. And they got their weight down, and they kept their weight down. It didn't yo-yo up and down like the crazy diets. And you're going to see this in a little bit. So this was complete bogus. Next slide. And what this did to us as a country, and what it is continuing to do to us, is make us a nation of overweight people. A nation that's far more susceptible to cancer, far weaker, far more susceptible to literally every chronic illness. And why is that? Well, in 2011, we learned that if you're just 1 pound overweight, and this is really tough to take, guys, even 1 pound, and they got a crap study to support this, which really hurts. I'd love to rip this study apart, but I looked at it, and it's a pretty good study. 1 crap pound overweight is low-grade chronic inflammation, which will lead to infection, which can then lead to cancer. 1 crap pound. That's hard to take. Now, if you've got 20 of those pounds, every 10 pounds of fat is 7 miles of blood vessels. So if you pick up 20, now you're going to blow your heart and give you cancer. And where's this coming from? Some idiot has told you that you should have a lot of carbs. You get up in the morning, and you got this syrup garbage, you got some other crap garbage, it's all sweet. And it's just amazing what crap it is, and you're eating it in the morning. Well, in 2011, they did a study. And this study is just a mind blower. And it totally vindicated my closet diet. In this study, they took police officers who ate donuts, and they gave them Coca-Cola sponsored it. You can see it, evil with evil, but it's screwed up. They really came out with something neat. So the guys are eating donuts, and they're all overweight. What a coincidence, huh? And what they do in the study is they give them the same number of donuts, but they have to eat them after 3 o'clock. And they do an 8-week study, and there's a 28% drop in body fat. So what they've shown is that when you get up in the morning, whether you're 8 or 80, you're in maximum insulin resistance. So you eat sugar, it goes to fat. And what do we feed you? Sugar, 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 sugar. Okay, now, if you get up at about 7 o'clock, you need about 7 hours, and now you're at maximum insulin sensitivity. Now you eat the same carbohydrate, and it goes to your muscle. Oh, so no wonder that closet diet worked, because they didn't let you eat any from 7 to 12. And we had a really tough time doing it. And the reason they had a tough time doing it was that they're not able to easily go to ketosis. And the older you are, the harder it is to be ketotic. Harder and harder. And many times it would take 5 days to 5 weeks to be able to go 5 hours and drink a quart or two of water. You couldn't make it. And if you can't make it, you go on low glycemic fruit until you can make it. Okay, so what they gave us by lying and deception is a nation that's overweight, sick, way more cancer, way more heart disease, and misery. So that some guy, Ansel Keys, and a bunch of other cronies could be famous. And you can read this, keep going, and I think it'll get to, yeah, there's another bad guy, Walt, and the trans fats, but now the new guy is interesterification. Oh boy. And you guys are going to be the grand experiment again. Isn't that great? Aren't you lucky? Yeah.
Quick question. What was the name of that 2011 study?
If you want any of the studies, you can tell her, and I'll email you the study. Okay, I got all the studies. Okay, this was the expose, and this is a masterful book written by Nina Techholz, and it's called The Big Fat Surprise. And it gives a chronology of all these things that have happened. It's really, I think, a great story to read, so that when somebody's telling you something about food, you want to check it out. You don't just go on some kook diet. We are just not responsible here. We're not presenting science. It's very, very sad. Next slide. This is her book cover. Heck of a nice job. She's actually a New York Times writer. So she writes in a very entertaining way. It's not a difficult book to read. Next slide. So as we move to talk about food, we've talked about what food. We've talked a little bit about what the percentage of the food should be. It should be higher fat, moderate protein, and low carbohydrate. Now, if you've achieved ideal weight, you get to eat pretty much anything you like, any time of day. But if that weight's going away and you're gaining unnecessary body fat, now you restrict yourself in the morning and give yourself a literal 5-hour fast. And the way I want you to think about this diet, I want you to think about this diet as a diet holiday. In other words, it's going to be fun. And you know who's going to have the most fun? This body you're trapped in is going to be ecstatic. So it's going to be a holiday. See, change the, oh my God, I'm giving up something. Get out of that mindset. You're not giving up anything. What you tell yourself if you got 20, 30, 40 pounds to lose is I'm not ever going to break this diet till I'm at ideal weight. When I'm at ideal weight, once a week I can have any damn thing I want. And it is a damn thing if it's off this diet. Okay? So if you tell your mind this, you get out of this suffering, sacrificing, punished, bad situation, which kills every diet. You know, I don't know how many people have come to me. I did a comedian many years ago, who's passed away now, and he told me he had lost 2,000 pounds in his lifetime. And he said, do you want to know how I feel about being here? I feel rage. I feel quiet rage. His wife was in the bathroom, and his wife is like 30 years younger. And on her way back, before she gets back, he says, I'm only here because she'll leave me if I don't lose this weight. That's why he's here. And so I start talking to him about what I want him to do. And he says, you know, I've tried everything. And I said, okay, if you've tried this, it's a freebie today. Go home, no charge. You don't have to do anything. So the wife comes back, and he looks at the diet, and he says, I don't really see a lot of change. I said, well, you can go with no charge then, and we don't have to keep working. And she says, my God, this sounds like it might work. What do you mean you're going to go home? And so she keeps him on a diet. He never was off ideal weight the rest of his life. Never. And my best case was a 726-pound prison chaplain, 6'8", ideal weight about probably 300. Huge man, huge man. So he comes in my office, and I've just remodeled. And he sits in one of my chairs and crushes the chair. And so he moves to the other chair, and I said, hey, look, could you not move too much? Because, you know, I've already lost one chair. No. He goes to get up, crushes the other chair. So if you ever come to my office, I've got chairs that handle 750 pounds. They got 5 legs, and I don't care how big you are, you can't ruin my chair. And when I got those chairs, and he came in and sat in it, he was still about 600. He sat in the chair and said, my God, this is a comfortable chair. And I said, yeah, and you can't break it. And it took me like 3-4 years, and we got him to 295 pounds, and he stayed there for more than 20 years. Okay? So it's doable, and I tell you this story because you got a little weight, and you just can't quite get it off. Well, let me tell you, if you've got particular weight, like abdominal weight or hip weight, or you've got weight hanging off your arms, each of these means something different energetically. This is your pancreas. This is your gonads, whether it's ovaries or uterus. This could be adrenals. It could be late eating. It could be digestion. It could be a serious interference field here. So we know how to get rid of it all. The technology is here now. You don't have to be fat. Is it going to be simple? You're going to go on this diet and everything's going to be fixed immediately? No. That's naive nonsense. But the diet will put you to a metabolism where the body can control itself and maintain an ideal weight. And we've never had that before. And we're now out of this nonsense, this series of lies that have taken us away from the truth about what we need to eat. Next slide. So we've got this serious thing now, though, with processing. So you've got this high-pressure sterilization. You've got homogenation. You've got pasteurization. And we need to have a little bit of a revolt. Imagine, with the technology we have in biochemistry today, we are still pasteurizing our milk. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Weston Price Foundation, but it's a wonderful group. And Weston Price, Price and Pottinger, but Weston Price, with at least 8 times, took a cow that had 2 calves and took 1 calf and fed it pasteurized milk, not even homogenized. And the other calf was fed directly from the mother. In 100% of the cases, the calf that got the pasteurized milk was dead in 30 days. We don't want to hear this. So we're going to feed you this crap second-class milk. But we got the technology to quickly scan the milk to see if it's got brucellosis, which is why supposedly we pasteurize the milk. At least that's what I read in the history book. So today, you mean we're so dumb and so retarded, we couldn't do a brucellosis screen and sell raw milk to everybody, not just you guys. See, you guys, you have money, you have power. There's organic pastures down the road. Great, you can have good milk. But you represent this much of the population. Here's the rest of the population thinking that pasteurized, homogenized trash is food. It's not food. So we need to do something to get back to real food. Yeah?
Of course, we know that pasteurized milk is virtually illegal here. I just want to point out, in the Czech Republic,
You mean non-pasteurized?
raw milk, excuse me, is virtually illegal. In the Czech Republic, you can buy raw milk from vending machines that are refrigerated. I have a picture on my Facebook.
That's fantastic.
I know, I was like, what? It was so cool. People just bring their bottles and get their raw milk at a vending machine, and they're all around town, and the farmers come in and dump the milk in every day.
What a difference. Yes, ma'am?
In France, the cheese are not pasteurized either. I mean,
Well, cheese may or may not be pasteurized. And yes, it's possible if the cheese is aged long enough that it will kill everything, even brucellosis if it was in there. That's why they allow raw milk cheeses. Okay? But Whole Foods has stopped selling them completely because in Texas and in a few other states, they've been sued for selling any raw milk product. In Texas, you're only allowed to sell raw milk if you are a farmer. Yeah, it's a really interesting law. Okay, so basically we have this nonsense processing that we're doing that's really making the food not worthy to be eaten. Yeah?
So we cannot have pizza because it was heated in the...
We cannot have what?
Pizza because the cheese was heated in the oven, right? It was very, I mean, the high temperature. Pizza.
I can't understand what you're saying.
pizza with cheese on it because it's heated to a high temperature.
You can eat it, but it's going to hurt you bad. But actually, the cheese there, where it's typically melted, is not heated to as high a temperature as fried food or many other things. But no, pizza is too much milk, way out of balance food, because to make 1 pound of cheese, 1 pound, it takes 10 pounds of milk. So now you're sitting there and you're eating 1/4 to 1/2 pound of cheese. Are you out of your mind? Now, what's the purpose of milk? The purpose of milk is to make a calf go 6 times its weight in less than a year. Now, if you need to be 6 times your weight in less than a year, I think it's a great thing to do. Let's eat lots of pizza. But it's idiotic. Pizza and cheese and things like this are like flavor-enhancing things for salad. You put a little bit in. You don't need an elephant dose. And your body type, 100% of Asians and African Americans cannot digest lactose. So now when you take that milk and you heat the pee out of it, the lactose now becomes a real challenge for you to digest. And if you're not taking an enzyme that's got lactase, that's going to create chaos in your gut. You may not even feel anything, but it's going to produce leukocytes. It's going to ultimately make you tired. It's going to just turn your immune system like a madman. So cheese in general, unless it's aged cheese, more than a year or so, is not a food for you. Okay? All right, next slide. So what about the foods? Now, this time, I gave this talk this afternoon, and I didn't hit enough on the vegetarian folks. But I was a strict vegetarian for 11 years. And I can tell you, living in this country, our production of vegetables is just second class. It's horrible. It's produced with NPK, synthetic fertilizers, just garbage, complete garbage. So if you try to be a vegetarian here, you're probably going to be very ill. Now, if you do want to be successful, you'll need to learn how to grow your food. No NPK, how to fix the soil, how to really do it right. And even if you do everything perfect, you're still going to be challenged with B12. So you can now buy a methylcobalamin supplement, and you can cover that. But you're talking about really swimming against the tide. About 15 years ago, I had a family come to me from Guatemala, and he was a diplomat. And this man was a fruitarian and quite a soccer player, very strong. And he'd come in this country because he had met someone in the diplomatic delegation from the US that was a patient of mine years before. And one of the big problems they had was their teeth, and we got their teeth fixed perfectly. So he had come to America with his family to get his teeth fixed. So here he comes over, and I said, well, whatever you do, you can't be a fruitarian here. The fruit is garbage, and you'll be sick as a dog. No, I can do that. I said, no, you can't. So after about a month and a half, long before he got his teeth fixed, he had to go home sick as a dog with all of his family. Now, if you'd like to be a vegetarian or a fruitarian, I think Guatemala is a great spot. So go ahead and move, and now I think you can do it. Or you can try to work with someone who can raise us world-class food. And this is one of the things we're working on right now. And it's not trivial. The electromagnetic fields from cell phone towers, from electrical lines, these things impact the plant just as well as humans and other animals. And you need to have ways to create an environment for that plant so it can grow super strong and healthy. And then eating that, you could definitely be a vegetarian. Okay? And it's my fantasy to go back to that, but I'm not going to do it and make myself sick, weak, and feeble. So that, now, can we do food combining and get a protein? Yeah, we can do all that. But you're going to see there's lots of anti-nutrients and weird things that are in these vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds that you really have to work on. Next slide. So we clearly see cooking is an issue. Obviously, the 212 is the XXX rated food. It shouldn't be consumed. If you would ferment food up to about 120 degrees, and I know we can get an argument over that, but I know 120 degrees, the enzymes are still there because I've tested for it, so I don't care what anybody says. So if we're willing to ferment food, we can take a rock-hard form of broccoli and ferment it so it tastes just like you cooked it. I can serve you a warm soup that's never gone over 120 degrees, And now this is super nutrition. But if you choose to cook the pea out of the broccoli, oh, guess what happens? You liberate nanobacteria from the fiber that would never get out otherwise. Oh, gee, what's that do? Oh, well, let's see. Circulatory disease, heart disease, kidney failure, diabetes. Boy, that sounds good, doesn't it? I can't wait to have that soup with broccoli with the pea cooked out of it. Now, if I eat that, how come some people don't get cancer? Don't get all these bad things? It's simple. They have hydrochloric acid, which is the antidote. It's what kills those little buggers. So you would never want to eat a cooked food meal without taking some hydrochloric acid if you're over about 30 years of age. Okay? All right, move on to the next slide. So fermented foods to me is the vista. And my fantasy is I can travel to a city and sit down at a restaurant and have food that I would fix in my own home there and not be poisoned or have to eat some second-class garbage. And I think it's coming. I think we're going to wake up. So next, thank you. So we've got to take a look at the source of this food, the way it's prepared, and what we have done with the USDA and all these other people is we've just confusingly mixed these things so they're inextricably confounded. So you really can't tell, is this really a well-grown food? Is this a raw food? Is this a cooked food? What is this thing? There's no delineation. And it's completely ignoring this. You know, the Bible of a clinical nutritionist is a book called Good Heart and Shill's Modern Nutrition in Health and Disease. When I got it, it was 1 volume in the beginning. Now it's 2 volumes. There's not a word about cooked food or raw food. Not a word. No word at all. Is there a word about hydrochloric acid? 0. 0. Great book, huh? So these guys are okay dying at 60, 70, or 80 with every kind of disease. And I never saw that 163-year-old guy that doesn't know anything that's in those 2 volumes. He knows nothing. It doesn't bother you guys, but I spent my whole life on it. It bothers me a lot, okay? But I am working on thank you. It's a real tough thank you. So how do we fix all this? Well, this is my answer to that. The biofield diet. And here's the guide to it. It's very, very simple. I'm not going to beat through every detail, but you can have a free copy. You can email me. We'll email you back a free copy. And this is 40 years of research. And this is backed by lots of people who are successful, one after another, after another, after another. So this is not something I dreamed up in the back room, and I'm going to try on you. This is something that really works. It's nutrition that really works. So the goal of this diet is to keep the body predominantly in an easy state of ketosis where it can use fat as fuel. You want it to use fat as fuel. You don't want it to suck off carbohydrate and store fat. Okay? So that's its goal. Now, if you're at ideal weight, you got a lot of leeway. If you start to gain weight, you want to take action.
Several times you've referred to ideal weight.
I have.
Several times. But in fact, what is it? I mean, can you just give me a parameter that I could? I used to say 5 foot for 100 pounds and a pound for every inch, another 5 pounds. Okay. So what are you using for a criterion?
I don't use that as a Mickey Mouse method. My gold standard is if I could weigh you in water and I look at your percent body fat. But I don't even like that because I can take a woman who's very cardiovascularly fit and she will have as much body fat as someone else who is very unfit. So really you need to take a look at yourself and the altogether, and if you have fat where you shouldn't have it, such as your hips or your abdomen, or you have fat hanging off your arms, or you ladies, if you gained breast weight, this is super bad because this is white fat, and this is directly correlated to heart disease. So you don't want your breasts to get bigger as you get older. Okay, that is a disaster, no matter what this country thinks. Anyway.
So you don't have a scale to offer necessarily? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But what I do like is when we work on somebody that we work on them, I love to do conditioning. because this is one of my favorite things. And why do I like conditioning? I'm so glad you asked me that. I love it because the major thing that happens as you age normally is you lose mitochondria in the cell. So you become weaker and weaker and weaker. But if I train you and you become fit, it's the single most potent way to raise mitochondrial biogenesis. The single most. And we hate it. We treat the E word with more revile than the F word, you know? And we need to make a change, even if you just take a walk or you ride a bike, but you need to get your butt out and do something with it, okay? And I got to tell you, it was interesting. I have a friend in England, and he can't run, so he became a biker. And he does about 2 hours, 4 or 5 times a week. And he has just melted the body fat off him because I kept beating on him to do some exercise. But his butt is as hard as my bicep. I saw that and I thought, my God, I got to do some of that bike riding. It's really impressive. And it's pleasant. So if you could find an exercise you really enjoy, and living where you live here, if the water is clean, the best thing I ever did was swimming. It may not be possible anymore because it seems like there's way more shark stuff going on and a whole bunch of stuff that's pretty scary. But you might be able to find a saltwater pool where you could swim or make a saltwater pool. And I'm just moving onto a compound of land, and I'm going to build myself about 100, 150 foot long, 4 foot deep saltwater pools so I can go back to swimming because I think of all the exercises, nothing is better than swimming. Okay, so the goal is to get control and just see your body recontour. That's what we're talking about. Do you have a question?
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned ketosis for a few times already. My question is, how do you stay in ketosis? Because while you're in ketosis diet, you actually, it helps you burn fat. So how do you stay in that state without having, sugar cravings and snacks and whatnot?
He's ahead of me. Usually only you women are ahead of me, but he's ahead of me. Okay, so the answer is that there has to be carbohydrate, but the carbohydrate has to come when you're at maximum insulin sensitivity. So that means we don't eat heavy-duty carbs until about 3 o'clock, and we do it till about 7:30. But you could have wine at that time. You could have rice. You could have a number of starches. You could have fruit. You can have a whole bunch of things, whatever it is you like. That's the time, not first thing in the morning. And the ketosis, it's very funny. I did a whole bunch of these fitness guys that couldn't get the rest of the body fat off them. In fact, they're carrying this young kid, and he's carrying like half an inch to an inch of body fat almost all over his body. You can pick it up all over his body. It's really creepy. And so he says, this diet's not putting me in ketosis. I said, wait a second. We can only pick up a 1/4 inch, and you're way more fit. And when we weighed you, you're way less body fat. So how could you do that if you were not in ketosis? You are in ketosis, but the idea is you're training the body by getting up at 7 or 8 o'clock and going till 12 or 1 o'clock without carbohydrate. You force the body to begin to burn fat. You force it. Now, granted, you're old, you're weak, you're feeble. The forcing is going to take a long time, and you feel miserable, so you give them a low glycemic fruit, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, something like that, and you don't get any other sweet. That's it. And is it fun the first 5 days to 5 weeks? No, I'm not going to tell you it's fun. It's a pain in the ass, but it works. It works really good, and after you get to it, there's nothing. You could go the whole day without eating because your glycogen is stored in the muscle, and see, that's what you're asking me. By that carbohydrate late in the day, and you guys just saw me, I had to eat garbage, but I ate carb garbage so I can load in the muscle, so I can go tomorrow and I don't need to eat anything. I go a long, long time without eating. That's the way we were engineered. When we were primitive, you would go 2-3 days sometimes without protein. Amino acid pool only has to be repleted once every 3 days unless you're infected. Okay? All right, so let's move on. Okay, so the secret is in the morning, we're going to give the body a lot of really good water. And water is a really challenging thing. And there's all kinds of stuff. There's alkaline water, and the people are going to tell you this water is better. I don't find any of that true. Let me tell you, when you get purified water, yeah, you get rid of the pesticides, you get rid of all this junk, but the water's got a signature, a homeopathic signature that it's garbage. So your body has to overcome that. But what you can do, if you've got a couple of bucks to rub together, you can buy a water purification device and then feed the water into an into a distillation unit, and now you have water of the gods. Okay? Is it expensive? Is it a nuisance? Absolutely. But it's perfect water. So you got a couple of bucks, you want the best, that's the $20,000 stereo. Short of that, you could drink some Arrowhead distilled water. Might have some pesticides from time to time. It's going to have some of the phthalates from the plastic, but if you got good sulfur-based amino acids, you can clear it in 24 hours. Is it ideal? Definitely not. But it's like the $30 boombox. It's going to play the stereo. You're going to hear the music. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to hear the music. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard about? Oh, it's okay. What about mixing a? So what I do is in the morning I mix a teaspoon or a couple of teaspoons of a Himalayan pink salt in about 32 ounces of water, and I mix that first thing in the morning. I feel like it helps me.
Yes, salt is essential for life. And many people that exercise heavily get in very deep trouble for lack of salt. They become achlorhydric or hypochlorhydric, and they may get all kinds of infections and everything else. The best way to deal with that is to taste your perspiration at the upper outer part of the shoulder. It should be slightly salty. If it isn't, increase the salt. This is very critical to athletes, people your age who are doing a lot of exercise. I don't happen to be a fan of Himalayan pink salt because they grind the salt. And to grind the salt, they have to use a high nickel stainless steel grinding screen. So if you like nickel, a nice carcinogen, that's the one you want to get. Okay? Since I don't want any salt that's ground. What you want is air-dried sea salt. That's the player, and it's cheap. You don't need to spend lots of money on anything here. Okay, so you want a really pure water. The salt doesn't purify the water. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the sweets we've covered. Next slide. Okay, so the goal, if you want to, you don't need to. We covered it. Okay, the goal, if you guys who want to just get by, you want to see that slide? I'll put it back up. Put the slide back up. I got to watch out how I'm doing on time.
Okay.
How are we doing here?
So how many more minutes? We'll give you 5 more minutes?
5 more minutes? Okay.
Okay.
All right. So if you want to just get by, guys, you want at least 50% of your food to be raw. But it can't be some salad. It's got to be something that's got protein. It's got to be something that's got good fat. It's got to be something that's got good carbohydrate. So you don't win by eating your raw salad and now everything's good. It's each of these categories, you have to have some raw food. So this wonderful machine that you've been granted, when it's faced with a garbage, damaged, cooked fat or carbohydrate or protein, when it's faced with that, and a good one, a 2007 study shows that 100% of the time it chooses the good oil, the good carbohydrate, the good protein. So if you can do that, even if you get junk, you're okay. So you get by, folks. This is how you get by. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the diet. I've covered a little bit of it. The basic thing is the morning, if you're at ideal weight, you're going to be able to have fruit or whatever else you would like. If you're not, you're going to fast for 5 hours and you're going to have 1 or 2 quarts of water. Lunch, you're going to have high fat, high protein, and it's up to you to choose what you would like. If you're a strict vegetarian, you can have various types of nuts. If you're a strict vegetarian, one of the most important things to eat is figs. Remember, every seed is a complete protein. So if you load figs, you can't lose, okay? All right. For the meats, I really favor lamb because all these others have so many problems and they lie about the way they make them. It's just really, really very sad. If you can get bison, that's really good. If you can get venison, great, okay? But these are hard to come by. You're not going to go down the store and buy it. Okay, so that would be the main meal. You would have protein at night only if you're infected. And how do you know you're infected? You'll get a little roll of pH paper. You have one of those to show them. It's, you want the one that goes from 5.5 to 8 in steps of 0.2 of a pH, except the first step. Yeah, let me show everybody this. Thank you. So this is a roll of pH paper, and this is your best friend. I raised 2 children who never spent a day sick in bed, never saw a cavity, and don't know pain the way all of us know pain. And I did it by checking the pH. And when the pH was good for 2 weeks straight, it held 6.470. I began checking once a month. And I would check the last Sunday of the month. I'd measure the kids. And if they grew more than a ½ inch, I knew the pH would be acid. I'd have to up the minerals. My son is 6'4", so there was a lot of ½ inch episodes. And when we did this, not only strong, but then when they play sports, they don't get injured. It's such a different environment, okay? And for you, this is your window to pre-pathology. And what's that mean? That means before you have X, Y, or Z disease, you know you're in trouble because the first morning urine pH is acid. And if you can't get the darn thing into the alkaline zone, 6.4 to 7.0, you need a practitioner. You need somebody to help you. And you really need someone who does chronic illness, not acute care. Our medicine is the best acute care on the planet, but it's not addressing chronic illness. So what you can do, you can get the names of some of the people who've mastered quantum reflex analysis, such as yourself, and these people know how to fix this. Okay, and most of them are holding that morning urine pH. So that is one of my favorite tools. America, in the last 10 years, the American Laboratory Association has said the first morning urine pH has gone from 5.5 to 6.0 down to 5.0 to 5.5. It's a logarithmic scale. It means a 50-fold reduction in tissue oxygen in the last 10 years for the average American. You've got to take a mineral to get this into control. And you really need to supplement with digestive enzymes and especially HCl. And this HCl is the ultimate methyl donor. You're going to learn from the, I'm almost done. When you're going to learn from the Human Genome Project that your gene deck is 35% virus and cancer genes. And when you demethylate, it expresses those cancer genes or virus genes. So the most important single thing you can do to protect against cancer and the chronic viral infection is to make sure you never eat another cooked food meal without taking hydrochloric acid and pepsin and digestive enzyme. And I will stop at that point. I was going to go through a few things that you need that this diet won't cover, such as your vision. You need to take extra zeaxanthin and lutein. You need to eat some Brazil nuts to be sure you have selenium. There's a few things you've got to cover so that this diet is still not going to lead to any disease. It's not enough because of our food here. And I'll stop at that point.
And I will mention that, is this working?
Turn it on.
That
Turn the switch on, please. It's not on. There you go.
You can kill the slides. There you go. Now it's light.
Okay, that I haven't found anyone who doesn't have to continuously mineralize their body because of our environment.
You mean with a supplement?
With supplements, not just with food. It's impossible. We breathe in too many toxins every day that have to get processed. We go through tons of minerals to process those toxins, let alone what we need to digest our food and everything else. So to keep your pH in the right zone, regardless of your diet, I have yet to find somebody who doesn't have to supplement both mostly the micro minerals and the trace minerals.
I think you mean the macro minerals like magnesium and calcium, right?
What did you say?
You mean the macro,
No,
calcium
I
and
mean
magnesium?
the micro minerals
As well.
and the trace minerals. Through diet, I find that a lot of people get enough calcium, but maybe not enough magnesium.
Yeah, true enough.
You know, so, and if you were here at the, there was a talk, Death by Calcium talk here at Smart Life. We know that we over-mineralize the big vitamins, and we don't have enough of those trace minerals that will help us get our pH up here. We're in the right zone. Yes?
Do you recommend sparkling mineral?
Give her the mic.
The mic has to be to everybody for the video.
Do you recommend sparkling mineral water in addition to other things?
The only mineral water I recommend is Gerolsteiner. It's a German one, and it's bottled in glass only, and it has a high mineral content. Your opinion?
Well, in order to digest complex sugars like beans, the body, I don't need this, I got this, you can hold this. The body needs carbonates. So if you have kind of exhausted your digestive reserve, your 40 or 50, some carbonated water may assist you in digesting kidney beans, pinto beans, black beans, or any heavy-duty complex carbohydrate, even potatoes.
There are no methyl groups in HCl. How is it a methyl donor?
What are you talking about? It's trimethylglycine, the ultimate methyl donor.
HCl, I thought you said.
I did. It's betaine hydrochloride. We just abbreviated HCl. Okay. You're talking hydrochloric acid. Yeah, it's just abbreviated for convenience.
And by the way, one of the reasons New Zealand lamb is okay, it doesn't have to be organic. I've been there. It's all grow. You see little white dots over all of these green mountains. They're all grass-fed. And I've been to a farm way up in the mountains, a ranch way up in the mountains. They don't need to give their animals poisons for them to thrive in New Zealand. So you don't need to worry about whether it's organic from New Zealand. And at Trader Joe's, you can get some raw organic cheeses from New Zealand.
So in the morning, the first thing you're going to drink water, is that right? No food?
A big man like you, 2 quarts minimum. Yes, no food.
And be near a toilet.
And one of the things that I've said to people is that when you go to the store and you see all of the nutrients listed on the top there, food or the vegetables that you eat are only as good as the soil they're coming out of.
Absolutely.
And what I take humic acid is what I take.
For what? What are you taking humic acid for?
It has minerals in it.
No, well, humic acid, see, the organs and glands actually have a reserve of organic acids, of which humate would be one, fumarate, there's others. And by eating white flour and white sugar, you quickly deplete those things. So I like humate, but it wouldn't assist in the digestion itself. It would assist in the vitality of the organ or gland.
And the depleted soil is why we need to mineralize.
Exactly.
We can't make up for no minerals in the soil. That means no minerals in the vegetables, which means no minerals in you, which means without minerals in you, you can't retain your oxygen that you breathe. And you can't retain, so you have no energy.
Regarding going into ketosis, I was a competitive bodybuilder back in the 70s and 80s, and so I've done that. As bodybuilders, we're very familiar with ketosis. I experienced, and I hear what you're saying, but I know the important thing is do it correctly. But if someone is trying to maintain or put on a lot of muscle tissue, what do you recommend to someone who is trying to maintain or put on a lot of muscle tissue and still go into the ketosis?
Well, I think that if you want the ultimate rippled muscles and the best looking body, you want to be able to achieve ketosis, but you also have to load carb to the muscle when it's time, when it's ready, when insulin's available. And you can always high sign somebody who's got a problem with insulin. There's lots of extra weight here off the arm at the tricep. Man, that's a high sign, you're in deep trouble. thing to remember about the pancreas too is if you've got silver fillings and then you've got crowns and other mixed metal in your mouth, you're going to have this mercury in the silver filling coming out 80 times faster than if you only had one type of restoration. What we're seeing now is that electroplates the pancreas and dramatically diminishes the ability to produce insulin. And you can just watch hemoglobin A1C rise, and then as you detox these heavy metals, you can just watch it come back down. So there is a lot of factors that make it hard to hold ketosis or even to do ketosis. I've given you kind of an oversimplification, and I apologize for that, but at least you have the basics, okay?
Comment about what the ratio for sports performance would be in terms of food?
I don't understand the question.
Well, you gave an ideal diet so people could lose weight. But what if you want an ideal diet so you could perform better in your sports, not get injured?
The same diet, but you may be eating. See, people have asked, how much protein do you need? The maximum protein you need is 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So if you're in high performance, you're doing heavy cardio, you're doing intensity training, which is my favorite thing to really get the muscles up, okay? If you're doing that, you got to have protein within an hour of doing it, and your maximum for the day would be 1 gram per kilogram of body weight.
Any other, yes, more questions?
Email address do we write to get a copy of the full diet?
Okay, here, I'll give you a card. Back on here. If you like, just take a card. They'll be able to do it. Whoever wants one, you're welcome to a card. Yeah, I'll put them on a table. You guys can just grab them, okay? Yeah, go ahead.
Recommendation to someone who survived polio but experiencing weakness and fatigue, please.
I can tell you right now, I've done a lot of polio people, and you've got severe interference fields. You got ones that are progressing and you're getting weaker, and the areas that were affected are weaker and weaker with every passing year until it will totally cripple you, unless you learn how to do mud packs. So the way this game goes is the old dog who doesn't want to learn the new trick is destroyed. So that's how the game goes.
The ancients used water therapies and mud packs and the herbs around them, and they created amazing cures. And we lost all that when we discovered antibiotics. We threw out everything else that we used to know and use, including the medicine in the early 1900s, which was phenomenal.
But many of the best books were also burned, so it was very hard to know. That's one of the real tragedies of the last 200 years. And when Hitler came along stealing the artwork, it was not uncommon just to burn the building down. So, you know, it was really a rape of our intellectual heritage, a very serious one.
One more question. Actually, we can take 2 more questions.
Okay.
Eggs. I have something to say about eggs that you didn't say.
Okay.
Please give me a chance. When chickens, that is not pastured chickens, chickens that aren't penned up, are fed flax, they can turn the ALA into EPA and DHA, like fish oil. That's one thing. And then I noticed at Trader Joe's, I want to make this comment about fertile eggs. Fertile eggs, of course, come from happier chickens, right? Less cortisol. But also, there's a substance called follistatin in fertile eggs, which fights myostatin, which increases the size of muscles. So if you go to websites for bodybuilders, you'll find that they go for fertile eggs. And I think that's happier chickens, follistatin, and flax-fed. Trader Joe's has omega-3 eggs that have been fed flax. They can turn the ALA into EPA and DHA. We can't.
Yep.
Thank you.
Actually, we can, because we have desaturase enzymes. But if we have a trans fat, it interferes with desaturation and makes it very difficult to do.
You mentioned no carbohydrates in the morning. What do you think about protein powders without adding fruits and carbohydrates?
Well, protein powders, I think, would be fine if you've done hard cardio exercise. So you did something hard, within an hour you need protein and fat. Or you're going to muscle catabolism. You're going to tear down the muscle. Okay, if you haven't done that, if you're doing it after 3 o'clock, now you can just eat carbs, you can have whatever you want. And for many of the bodybuilders who do really intense, high interval training or intensity training, it's better to do it later so that you can take carb with the protein.
All right. I'm sorry we don't have any more time for questions. We need to take a 15-minute break.